You all know that it's our tradition. Every month we gather together to listen and discuss and network on matters of global, national interest, and maybe sometimes things specific to Nigeria and South Africa.
We can't stop here. There are many critical reforms that have to be implemented to unlock the country's potential. One of them is the power reform. It seems that this time we're on the right track, and that by hopefully Q4 this year, the power assets will be fully privatized. I think that's very important because Nigeria, unlike many other African countries, has the economies of scale to actually launch a light manufacturing sector. But obviously today that's almost impossible because of the energy-related costs, and that could change. That could help diversify the economies too. Interesting point. As you know, Nigeria was included in the GBIEM bond index last year. So clearly it's become a bond market that cannot be ignored anymore internationally. All international accounts in the US or the UK are now paying Nigerian bonds, which is positive, but it can be also risky because it's good to have inflows that supports your exchange rate, but the day when you have outflows, you have to know how to manage that. And we've seen actually that the exchange rate came under pressure in June when there was a repricing of emerging market debt assets across the globe. Same actually on the equity side. I mean, if you think about it, equities have attracted capital inflows for longer actually, even since 2011, those inflows actually resumed. So Nigeria is becoming increasingly integrated into the global financial system, which I think is a plus. But the key challenge going forward is how to manage this process, but also how to use those proceeds to actually improve the level of public spending on capex projects and actually help the country move forward.
So, investing in Nigeria, I've had dinner with them, I've had dinner with the French and the French investors in Nigeria, I've had dinner with the British and British investors in Nigeria. So the next one is the Japanese investors and the High Commissioner, the Indian, and also I do that on a quarterly basis going forward, and we have different formats to this. But to start with, let me say, in terms of the ministry has 4 main mandates. It's an expanded mandate, never been like this before. Very similar to what you have in Japan, where you have meeting. Now we have meeting Nigeria. So what it does is responsible for attracting investments across all sectors of the economy. It's responsible for trade, domestic, international, and regional trade. It's responsible for industrialization, making sure that we industrialize our country, and it's responsible for enterprise development, meaning SMEs. So mainly, it's the interface between government and the private sector. And it's actually the heart of the economy if you look at across the board. When you define the economy, that's what it is, SMEs and the businessmen. So it's the interface between government and the businessmen. Developing economies, countries that control more than 75% of the world's GDP today have different problems. Their problems is about grappling with sovereign debt crisis. It's about grappling with fiscal deficit. It's about low returns and low investments. So what you see, when you compare that to Africa today, 6 of the 10 fastest economies are here in Africa. 7 of the 10 fastest economies by 2015, 2016 will be from Africa. So we're talking about a continent that is now known as a continent, as a last frontier, because it is a high return and high growth environment. And this is the first time ever that Africa or Nigeria will find itself in this position.
Dr. Samuel Gadu from the Standard Bank Emerging Markets. You're here at the Nigeria-South Africa Chamber of Commerce August Breakfast Editions. Great to have you.
Thank you.
You gave a wonderful presentation on the macroeconomic outlook for Nigeria and indeed the emerging markets. Tell us a bit how the emerging markets have now become a critical part of the global economy.
Well, what we've seen over the last 10 years is that emerging markets have been driving global growth. Global growth in in the US, in Europe, in Japan have declined drastically, while obviously countries like China, India, maybe a little bit less so recently, but even other developing countries are growing much faster. And when you take the African region, for example, the growth rate is likely to be 5.5%, maybe 5.8% this year, which compares to 3% of global growth overall. So that's a new paradigm that we have to take into account.
No, but other days, it took us an hour and a half. I was so pleased coming back to the 3.5 hours.
But above all, let me say a very, very big thank you to Stanbic Bank for hosting this event.
You talked about the fact that Africa at the moment contributes only 3% to global trade. What can be done to leverage and improve that level?
Now, if you look at Africa accounts for only 3% of the global trade. And when you look at it and say, why is that the case? It's very simple. It's because Africa has been playing at the lower end of the value chain. So for decades, Africa has been exporting raw materials, exporting jobs, and therefore they will always remain at the bottom end of the value chain. But today, Nigeria and all the other African countries are now focusing on value addition. So the idea is to move up the value chain. That will increase the value, and of course, you move up in terms of your contribution to the global trade. So that's the strategy. And you can only do that by integrating your trade policy with your industrial policy and making sure you have a robust industrial policy that promotes manufacturing.